Ross, good morning to you. This is
Morning,
not the
Pete.
first game of chicken the government has played with tech leaders.
It is. It's dead set a game of chicken. There's no doubt about that. And so Mark Zuckerberg clearly is negotiating with the Treasurer face-to-face and really didn't get what he wanted. And as a result of that, the government really has stared them down. Now, consider that there are two other things that have actually happened in the past where big tech giants have effectively taken on the Australian government. One was when the GST was introduced on foreign-bought goods. Remember that when the government did that, Amazon threatened to withdraw from Australia. And in fact, if you remember, it actually blocked Australians from buying goods on Amazon sites in the UK or the US or other parts of the world.
For a couple of months too, right?
For a few months.
Yeah.
But eventually, that all sort of fell apart and they came back in. And now, if you're an Australian, you can actually go and do those things. Consider also when the e-safety commissioners were brought in, this was in the wake of criticisms of Facebook, remember, and its actions in broadcasting the terror attack in New Zealand, in Christchurch. Now, subsequent to that, the government said, look, enough. Something's got to be done about these platforms literally being able to publish without any consequence. And so e-safety commissioners were introduced. Again, these big tech giants said, no, we're not happy. We might think about withdrawing. That went through. It all happened. My gut feel here is that Google has actually moved because Microsoft said it was happy with the laws. Microsoft could see an opportunity here in Australia to get bigger in search with its Bing. Now, the interesting part about this, when you come to Facebook, however, Facebook owns both Messenger, it also owns Instagram, and obviously Facebook itself. I can't see a natural competitor to Facebook in Australia, which is part of the reason why this legislation came in. If you've got to just deal with Facebook when it comes to this sort of social content sharing, then where else do you go to as a news media organisation to get a better deal? And I think this is one of the keys. Facebook knows it's relatively unique in what it offers to Australians. The government also, unlike search, when Google could have had Bing as a competitor or DuckDuckGo or something like that, there's no other technical replacement for Facebook as a social media platform in Australia. And the only other one potentially is Instagram, which is kind of different.
It's owned by Facebook.
That's right. So let's now go to the Treasurer, Josh Frydenberg. He's just talked about it, of course, a lot in the last little while. Here's what he had to say.
Their decision yesterday to withdraw Australian news media content as well as close down those other government sites. That was very regrettable, very unfortunate, very disappointing. I think it was heavy-handed and I think it damaged Facebook's reputation here in Australia.
Yeah, now one of the interesting parts about this, Pete, is of course retailers and others obviously use these sites and they're getting bigger because this is where you can do business. So it actually creates an economic benefit to Australia. Right now we're seeing all of Australia's big companies and retailers. Now, the interesting part about this is the retailers have had boom conditions as people have got money out of their superannuation funds, they've got money from JobKeeper. JobKeeper is about to end. I did, however, speak with Rob Scott, the boss of Wesfarmers. So I think that's Kmart, that's Officeworks and that's Bunnings Warehouse, about exactly the way in which they go about all of this. Just have a listen to what Rob Scott had to say.
If Australia does well, Wesfarmers does well. And I think Australia has weathered the storm of COVID so much better than many other countries, and we should be quite proud of that. We've seen really effective programs like JobKeeper and the additional Job Seeker programs. We've seen businesses across the country really step up and provide a lot of support. The government's worked really hard to get us through this, and that has certainly helped our retail sales. There's been some trends around people spending more time at home, more time working at home that have benefited our businesses. But at the end of the day, our 100,000 team members, or more than that, 120,000 team members, have really stepped up to radically adjust our operating models to have COVID-safe practices, accelerate our digital capabilities, and really be quite agile and responsive to a lot of the changes in consumer behaviour.
Just a quick one there. They had one company that could have qualified for JobKeeper. They were too big to qualify for it. They gave the money straight back. In fact, they gave it back so early, the tax office didn't know how to take the money back. But I get the sense that he's telling a whole bunch of other retailers who are booming right now, give the money back. I think that's the sense that's there. And I've got to say, for example, you even saw some of the big casino operations. Crown yesterday took more than $100 million in JobKeeper. Star took a net $50 million in JobKeeper. This is big money. They needed it. There are others who have succeeded who probably don't need it so much.
Hey, just quickly, Ross, before you go, I want to talk to you about Bitcoin because several years ago we had a conversation.
We did, and I told you.
I asked you about that and you said you're better off putting your money on the Sixth and Randwick on the weekend.
You probably were, actually. The truth is, although that
So
being
the price was about 10 grand back then,
10
right?
grand, it's now 50 grand. So you got a 5-to-1 shot. You would have made your money go faster on the races, I'm going to say.
So is this something that people and people in high places are now taking notice of?
Yeah, it is, and this is the reason why. So you can't ignore Bitcoin now. Yeah. And I sense the reason why Bitcoin has really, become so apparent is not only have institutions and bigger organisations suddenly started to follow it, but it's the ability for people to be able to move money across borders. I know the Reserve Bank here dismisses it, others dismiss it as well. But as we saw last night, as we sit here now, Bitcoin is $52,000 US, about $66,000 Australian. It genuinely is a surge. I still worry about just the speculation that goes on with it, but you can't deny the fact that Bitcoin is a thing that is here and is going to endure for quite some time.
Yeah, here to stay.
Yes.
So,
are you ready to play your card with the Bitcoin?
Buyer beware. But
big beware.
Have you got any?
No, I don't.
Okay.
I just still think the Sixth at Randwick, you might get 10 to 1.
All right, we'll probably have this conversation in a year's time.
And it'll be 100,000. That's right.
Ross Greenwood covering all the bases this morning. Ross, thanks. Good to talk to you.